Your engine just stopped. You are at 10,000 feet. Below you, mountains. No runway. No road. No flat ground. And in 30 seconds, this helicopter is going to meet the earth. The only thing standing between you and that impact is the rotor still spinning above your head. This is called autorotation, and this is exactly how we train for it. Most people assume that when a helicopter engine fails, it simply falls like a stone. That assumption gets pilot killed because a helicopter with a dead engine is not a rock. It is a glider, a very specific kind of glider. One you have to fly actively with precise inputs every single second of the descent. But here is what most people get wrong. It is not the engine failure that kills you, it is what you do in the first 3 seconds after. If you are too slow in one control, your rotor RPM begins to bleed away. And once that RPM is gone, you do not get it back. That is the moment when the helicopter stops being a glider and becomes exactly what you feared. So let me show you the physics, exactly what happens and exactly how we train for it. When the engine is running, it drives the rotor. The engine turns the gearbox. The gearbox or the transmission system turns the rotor, and the rotor blades generate lift. It's simple. Now imagine if the engine dies. The rotor is no longer being driven from above. At that exact moment, your left hand moves. The collective goes down immediately, without hesitation. Why down? Because lowering the blade pitch reduces the drag on the blades, and that allows airflow to keep the rotor spinning. As the helicopter descends, air begins rushing up through the rotor disc. That upward flow is now what turns the blades. The engine may be dead, but the rotor is still alive. You are not falling, you are descending, deliberately and under control. The rotor is essentially a stored energy system. Thinking of it like a spinning flywheel. Your only job from the moment the engine fails to the moment you touch down is to protect that stored energy. Every second you are managing one number: rotor RPM. Too high, the blades overspeed and you risk structural damage. If it is too low, lift collapses and the helicopter drops. Between those two limits is a narrow, safe band. Pilots call it the green arc. Real autorotation is simply flying inside that arc, all the way to the ground. Now let's talk about time. At sea level, a standard autorotation gives you roughly 30 to 45 seconds of controlled descent, depending on the height. 30 to 45 seconds to find a landing zone, configure the aircraft, manage your airspeed, and execute the maneuver. That sounds like enough time. It is not, because during those 30 seconds, you are also on the radio, scanning terrain, checking instruments, and coordinating hands and feet simultaneously. We train this maneuver hundreds of times, not because it is complicated, but because when the engine actually fails, your body will want to freeze. Training replaces that freeze with a reflex. Your hand moves before your brain decides. That is the entire point. Now add altitude, because this is where everything changes. At 15,000 feet, the air is thin. Thin air means your rotor blades are working in a less dense medium, and that means less lift is generated with each autorotation. It also means your rate of descent during autorotation increases, not slightly faster, significantly faster. At sea level, you might descend at about 1800 to 2000 feet per minute. At 15,000 feet, that descent rate can increase to 2500 feet per minute. Your 30-second window suddenly becomes 20 seconds. Your landing zone becomes more critical, and your margin for error becomes as thin as the air itself. This is why high altitude flying is a completely different discipline. We do not just train autorotations, we train altitude specific autorotations. Different weights, different density altitudes, different temperatures. Because the same maneuver that saves your life at sea level can become insufficient at altitude if your inputs are not calibrated. Different machine, different environment, different math. So what does this actually look like in the cockpit? Every autorotation training exercise begins the same way. The instructor pulls the throttle to idle to simulate an engine failure, and your job starts immediately. Collective down, rotor RPM protected, airspeed established at best glide, landing zone identified. You have about 15 seconds to make that decision. After that, you fly the approach at around 100 feet to 50 feet above the ground. You begin the flare. The nose pitches up, airspeed bleeds off, and that airspeed converts into rotor RPM, your final energy reserve. At the correct moment, and the timing here is everything, you level the aircraft. Then you raise the collective. That final pull uses the remaining rotor energy to cushion the landing. Pull too early and you use the cushion too soon. Pull too late and the skid hits hard. The window for that final input is about 1 second. 1 second after 30 seconds of everything else. That is what we train. Now let's put this into context. The helicopters operating near Everest base camp are working at altitudes above 17,000 feet. At that altitude, the hover ceiling for most helicopters is only slightly above where they are already operating. There is almost no performance margin. If an engine fails there, the autorotation descent rate is faster. The terrain is vertical and there are no large flat landing zones. Only ice, rock and wind that can exceed 100 knots. This is why Everest rescue pilots are not simply good pilots. They are specifically trained for that exact environment with specific aircraft at specific weights for very specific conditions. Because once you truly understand what autorotation demands from a pilot, you understand why. It is not a skill developed quickly, it is a skill developed precisely, calibrated to the environment, calibrated to the altitude, calibrated to the machine. Because in the mountains, the environment does not forgive improvisation. Every pilot I know who has survived a real engine failure says the same thing. They do not remember being scared, they remember being busy. That is what training does. It does not make you fearless, it makes you functional. When the engine stops, your training starts. And if that training is calibrated correctly, the rotor keeps spinning, the helicopter keeps flying, and you walk away from something most people would not. If you want to understand why the physics of Everest altitude makes rescue operations nearly impossible, I have broken it down in a short linked here. And if you want a full breakdown of high altitude autorotation training above 10,000 feet, drop a comment and I will make it. I am a high altitude helicopter pilot. This is what I know. I'll see you in the next one.